Alright, as you can see right now we're just starting out with a simple piece of metal. It's 1.5 inches wide and extremely long. Now obviously we don't need all of that, and we definitely don't need a razor to be 1.5 inches long. Usually the maximum buyable proportions for a razor are going to be about 1 inch. So I think for the fun of it, we'll start with 1 inch. And basically what I'm going to do is measure 1 inch out. And then I'll trace that. Now, your typical razor is about 3 inches long. So from start to tip, about 3 inches. By about, I mean exactly. So, all I'm doing at this point is making a square. And this is going to be the main body of the blade. As you can see, it's straight razor. So from here, we've got many options. But generally, I like to go 3 inches long and 2.5 inches in the tail. It makes a nice look, and it's generally a good use of the metal. So you have to consider where you want your spine to start, which is generally going to be right about here. So really, I like to freehand draw this stuff. And you can see it's important to be sure of your design. I'm not quite sure of this one yet, so I'm going to keep trying and trying and trying until I think that it's right. That looks okay. Now as we grind and cut, things will change and it won't exactly be the same shape. It may not look right, it may not feel right, you never know. But as you go, you can test, adjust, and make changes as you get closer to your finished product. So let's go cut this out. Cutting is not the most glorious thing, but it's gotta get done. So I like to use ear protection. I have to recommend using all sorts of protection. Just keep yourself safe. So here we go, I'll start cutting. Now we go to the grinder. Basically, we're going to try and profile this out. Get everything trimmed up, and it's going to be in a two-dimensional form. So we're not going to be worrying about this, we're just going to be worrying about 90-degree flat. I will, on the other hand, do this to get the burrs off so that it will lay flat. So, I guess let's get to it. Now I'm going to apply some Delcom onto this, some layout material. I like to use Delcom Blue. It's a great layout material, and this little tiny bottle will last me a really long time. Okay, now we're going to drill the rotation hole, or pivot hole, or really the one hole a razor has. Standard in the industry is a 1/16 inch bit. Makes for a real small hole. It may seem small at the time, but if you think about what a razor does, it doesn't actually require it to be that big. It doesn't have any force going side to side or anything like that. There's no one abusing these things. They're generally treated quite well. So a 1/16 inch brass rod will work perfectly well for it. Basically, as far as the drill press goes, be very careful. If this catches and starts spinning, it can cut you. It's happened to me. And also, I would like to say to use the lowest possible speed that you have accessible to you. And make sure that you're drilling at a 90-degree angle. That's also important too. So rub it around, make sure everything's flat and gone and out of there, and then pick your hole spot and go ahead and start your drilling. Now we switch our plating out to a round wheel. So pop that off. Use this wheel. I prefer to use a 1/4 inch, or wow, a 1/4 inch wheel. Just like that. Pull that in. Proper tension right about there. Let that track in. Set up my plate. I'll show you how I do that. Now, this process is going to be, let's say every part of this process has been the exact same as if I were making a knife up until this point. This wheel is what makes the difference between a razor and a knife. That and steel choice. But this grind, being a hollow grind, will be two circles coming together, making a moon, like so, instead of it being two flat pieces. So, it's very important that you get your hollow grind very good, but you don't want to over thin it in this beginning process. Otherwise, it might warp in the heat treat, which is never fun. Alright, let's get grinding. As you can see, I am constantly checking this right here. I want to make sure that it's straight all the time. Otherwise, you'll get slight warps in your blade just from grinding. Now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to clamp it back to the jig, facing the opposite direction. And I'm going to start beveling this side. I'll know the grind is good when it's nice and thin and both sides are even. Almost there. I'm going to clamp the razor back down to the jig. But this time, blade down. And it's very vital that I just barely cover the tail, so I know, or the vital, I just barely cover that pinhole. That way I know I'm not going over it, because I want that to be nice and 90 degrees flat, so that's always good. Alright, so we have that clamped down. Now we have ourselves a very, very tapered tang. Now I'm going to be using 80 grit sandpaper just to get all the edges worked down so they're not sharp. Try and get a lot of the scratches off of this razor and just basically make sure everything's prepped and ready for the heat treat.